Good Up is our space to talk about those experiences in life we didn't know we all had in common. We're the after work happy hour conversation with your best friend.
You good up fine, like, hello.
The place where you bring up the hard parts of life, the ones that made you laugh, and the things that made you who you are. Because who said becoming good up wasn't a little bit uncomfortable? Stay tuned for more information about this week's episode. Hey, beautiful people, and welcome back to another episode of the Good Up podcast. I almost said Beautiful People podcast as if we didn't change the name like
I caught
2
it.
seasons ago.
I caught it.
But welcome back. We are excited to be back for another week. This week, we have a wonderful guest on the podcast who went to undergrad with me, but also happens to be my sorority sister, but also happens to be my line sister. So if you know all of that terminology about sororities and fraternities, you know, like, this is my girl and I love her so much. So everyone welcome Maya. Maya, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because you do so much and I want to make sure that, like, you give yourself the props on here.
Now, hey y'all. Hi everyone. Hi friends. How are you? You know what? That's so hard. Well, first off, I'm Maya Angelou. Nice to meet you all. See you all. Hope you're all doing well. But you know, I have anxiety about that because I've been trying to figure out who am I without naming all the things that I do. So the introduction is quite weird, but I mean, I am a up and coming content creator, and I say that, and I guess that delves into the subject that we're going to be talking about. But I am a podcaster. I have 2 podcasts currently. One is Real Talk That Talk, which is band music, all the things art related, and then the other is Corporate Black Girls. I will talk about all things being Black, working in the corporate space and all of the crap that comes with that. I am also a corporate professional. I work in the tech capacity as of, March 13th. As of a month ago, I switched my career path, which has also been something. But yeah, you know, I'm just a girl out here just trying to keep it pushing and moving.
Welcome.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I'm so glad to have you. So yeah, I mean, Maya gave you guys a sneak peek of what we're going to be talking about today, which is imposter syndrome. So yesterday, I tweeted, do y'all be dealing with imposter syndrome? And every single person that replied to the tweet was like, hell yeah, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, of course I deal with it. And Maya responded and says she has a PhD in the shit. So I was like, you know what?
Sounds like a good guess to me.
I feel like if I had a degree in imposter syndrome, it would be a PhD. So let's bring Maya on the show because she feels me. She knows where I'm coming from. But for those of you who don't know what imposter syndrome is that internal feeling of, despite the things that you're accomplishing and the things that you're doing, that you are a fraud and that you don't actually deserve to be in the space that you're in and that you're somehow not qualified to do the things that you're doing. So anyone can deal with imposter syndrome, but I think Black women especially deal with imposter syndrome because we are commonly in spaces where we are the only people in that space. But also we're also called to question whether or not we are qualified all the time. So yeah.
Aren't there Black women who are almost overqualified for roles as we speak, being questioned by men who are not qualified? Like,
yes. And, you know, on top of that, like, it's actually funny because, like, Deidre just went back into, like, the workspace. Maya just changed her career path. I just got pushed into a first-time management position. So we are all, like, intimately familiar with that feeling of imposter syndrome. So my first question, I guess we can start with this, is when was the first time that you felt like you were experiencing imposter syndrome, or when is the first time you can remember experiencing imposter syndrome? So anyone can go.
I think we should let the PhD holder go.
Oh my God. So what I figured out is, okay, I think the first time that I experienced it but knew what I was experiencing is once I stepped into the corporate world. So after graduating, but really understanding that's because just, I don't know if that was out of research or if something just clicked and I was like, let me Google, why am I feeling this way? And the name popped up, imposter syndrome. And I was like, oh shit, well, that's what I've been experiencing all my life.
Yeah.
Being in all these different spaces, even going back to band and marching, being able to have all these accolades and people was like this, that, and the third. And I think on one of the podcasts last week, someone touched on and was like, hey, like, I don't even think you understand the positioning that you've had or have had, in different bands and this, that, and third. And I'm like, girl, what? Like, no, I don't feel that way. I'm just very much happy to be here. And I say that so much. And I think that I overcompensate for the things that I have been able to accomplish that I can't even see it. But to answer the question, I think I really realized it when I was forced to realize it, being the only Black girl on different teams and being like, okay, well, I feel like could be doing a good job, but am I being looked at because I'm just Black? Or if I'm doing so much and excelling, why am I not getting the promotions that everyone else is getting? Why is everyone getting, why are these external people coming in? And just being forced in kind of that box that I was trying to save myself from, but then just having to do a little bit more due diligence on my own and figure out, okay, I need to research this because something isn't clicking. I don't really understand why I'm continuing to feel this way.
Yeah. So the first time I felt actual imposter syndrome had to be when I started actually taking clients as an astrologer. That's the reality. I've been in corporate America for a while, and I don't know that what I experienced was imposter syndrome. I went through a period of questioning, maybe I think too much of myself and I've shared my story about leaving corporate America last season in the Fuck This Job episode, but I was working in a corporate job where I was patient enough to feel like, okay, let me ease my way in. Let me give myself time to master this role so I can move on to the next. But after 2 years of being in the position I was in, I kept hitting walls every time I would try to move on to other teams. And then I started to question, maybe I'm just underqualified and I think I'm more qualified than I should be. But it was other people on those same teams that I was being denied positions on that were like, why is Deidre not on our team yet? Like, why is Deidre not here? And of course, after I had my very dramatic exit from that corporate job, I learned that it was just that particular setting and the leaders who were making those calls. So I had to do a lot of self-discovery and all that jazz. But the true imposter syndrome came when I started learning about all my spiritual gifts just because of, my passion for astrology. And so naturally, all these people would be like, you're a healer, right? And you're psychic medium. And they're giving me all this list of credentials. And I'm like, why? Why me? You know what I mean? And then what would happen is I would do these, and to this day, I've been doing readings for like a year and some change now. And I've had a 100% success rate. And I still find myself like, no, not me. Like, please, it has nothing to do with me and everything to do with the ancestors. Like, I'm refusing to, do that. And I feel like the first time I truly realized, like, girl, you need to stop downplaying yourself was I was told a while ago that I'm a psychic medium, and I keep avoiding that. And I would have people who would be like, hey, can you do a reading for me? Because I'm trying to connect to this person. And I'd be like, sorry, I don't do that because I can't guarantee that I'll get through to them. And so one lady reached out to me and she was like, hey, listen, I'm trying to reach my husband. I feel like, can you help me with that? And I was like, listen, I'm a medium, but I can't guarantee that I'll get through to your husband. And for some reason, I felt comfortable doing a reading for her. And you guys, I did this reading and it was spot on. And I think that's when I realized, okay, Deidre, you have been downplaying yourself for a while because you could have been helping more people, but you keep thinking that you somehow are unqualified to do that. And the reality is you are. So yeah, I feel like the first time I've truly experienced it is when I've kind of eased more into a more spiritual space. Lately, I've been experiencing it a little bit because I just started a new job and I got a promotion very quickly. But I think because I've been in food and beverage for so long, I'm like, girl, when I catch myself being like, oh, maybe I got a promotion too soon, I feel myself sounding ridiculous. So I have to stop myself. I'm like, girl, stop. Like, you're doing a lot. Cut it out.
It definitely takes a lot to shut yourself up, I guess, or cut yourself off when you start thinking those imposter syndrome thoughts, because Like, I think it wasn't until my therapist was like, but who said you're not qualified? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what evidence do you have that you, and she was like straight up dragging me, like, what evidence do you have that you're not qualified to do this thing?
Yeah.
Like, who told you that? Like, please explain. And she needed me to like rationalize it in front of her, and I could not do it. I could not explain to her why I wasn't qualified to do what I thought I was unqualified to do. So yeah, like, you don't even catch yourself thinking those thoughts, like, or you don't even catch how silly they sound sometimes, but you believe it. Like, you believe it so
Yeah.
instantly. I honestly think I've dealt with some version of imposter syndrome my whole life.
Yeah.
Because I've always been in positions of leadership. I've always been somebody who works very hard, but I've never believed, probably up until now, even now I'm still experiencing it, but I in those positions, I had never believed like, oh, I deserve to be here. A part of that is ego, I guess. In my family, I am the very, like, I don't want to say arrogant, but I have like a natural confidence, right? In comparison to people
Aries.
whose personalities, yeah, that's literally it. Like, but in comparison, my family is like people who are very like chill and laid back, and they're not very like boastful, or they don't talk, hype they shit up often. That's just not how they are. So my hyping my own shit up was always seen as arrogance.
Yeah.
So it felt like I was going to get like punished or reprimanded for like talking my shit, So I would try to hold that back. But also, existing in life as a fat person, like, you never feel like you belong in a space. Even if you're qualified, even if you know you're the best person to be there, because you are the only person sometimes who looks like you, or because of how people feel about fat people, like, you never feel like you deserve to be in that space.
Right.
So imposter syndrome has definitely followed me my whole life, and it's something that I have to, like, I'm either Beyonce and I know I deserve to fucking be here and I know I'm the shit, or I'm like Maya said, I'm just glad to be here. Like,
I'm glad you brought up, I'm glad you made reference to your family, because I was going to say, I feel like 9 times out of 10, people who do struggle with imposter syndrome, regardless of how it manifests itself, it usually has to do with the people who raise them. Because a lot of us, we be getting humbled, right? When you're told to stay in a child's place your whole life, and then you are no longer a child, you don't know how to navigate the world without feeling like I need to stay in my place. Like, does that make sense? They tell us to stay in a child's place, but they also don't prepare us for what it's like to be an adult. So we just end up coming into this world with, entering the world with a certain level of humility. And we don't realize, like, we're getting these offers because we deserve them, because the people around us actually see that we are an asset, right? And that's why they're choosing to invest in us in the ways that they are.
yeah.
Absolutely. And so I think that my childhood, it kind of brought upon this imposter syndrome, but on the flip side, right? So growing up, my dad would always say, a humble person never speaks of their humility. So I got so attached to that became that kind of, along with that, and just things that I've dealt with in my childhood, just kind of growing up, dealing with just children are terrible people. Like, let's just be honest, they're horrible human beings.
They're
so growing up and
assholes.
dealing with like bullying and just all types of like crap, instead of me being like, okay, well, yes, I am a good person, or I am talented in these ways, but I don't have to say that because my talents speak for themselves. It changed into, well, maybe I'm not, or if I'm not supposed to speak of my humility, then do I even have this talent, or do I even have what I think that this is, or am I playing myself? And like you were saying, hey, I was like, you were trying to figure out, or your therapist was saying, like, who told you that? And all I could think is, girl, the back of my head told me that. The girl in the back of my head is telling me, girl, no. Like, you think that you're hot shit, girl. No, you're not. You better sit your ass down and figure it out.
I always wonder when that person was born, that person inside of us who tells us you're not good enough. When is that person born? Like, they don't come from nothing.
Honestly, I think a part of that too, and shout out to my therapist because she does a great job. But at the same time, girl, I know who told me that I wasn't shit and that I didn't deserve to be here.
Right, because I know too.
Those same asshole ass kids in elementary school and middle school and
Indeed.
high school and undergrad, like there have always been those people, which is why I brought up, being the size that I am. That's a part of it. Like, yes, imposter syndrome is semi made up in your head, but as Black women, we would be lying if we said that there weren't people
It didn't come
along
from
the way.
something.
Yeah, because young Black girls are always told, like, you need to humble yourself, you need to dial it down. And whenever we see Black women in media or prominent Black women who don't humble themselves, who hype them shit,
They're considered arrogant.
They're considered arrogant.
Difficult. Like, for the life of me, I can't understand why people don't like Amanda Seales. And it's just because she's a Black woman who won't shut her mouth. That's just the reality. She just won't shut up.
I have some reasons, but
well, I'm sure I'm sure there are people with reasons, and I'm sure those reasons are valid. But how many white women exist in media who are so fucking annoying, and yet there's still space for them? Fair. You know what I mean? Like, what is Amanda Seales saying that is that problematic?
I think it's because she stands on her word, and culture has made it to where Black women, sure, you're supposed to feel like that you're standing on what you have to say, but you're going to end up folding, or you're going to end up confining, and you're going to end up conforming, and she will not. So I think that of course, there are many other things that could be said, but I think that
trust me, there's things about her that I ended up unfollowing her at one point, but but the reality is because just like we can say, somebody's always telling us to be quiet, we have internalized that in some way, right? Like, I just don't have tolerance for how much of a loudmouth she tends to be. But the reality is I can't think of anything she said. Granted, I have not seen every single thing or heard every single thing she said, so drag me if y'all want to. I don't care. I got time. But up to this point, I can't think of anything she's done or said that I disagree with. Maybe the way she says things I don't agree with. And again, I don't have a record of every single thing she said. I can just go based on the clips that I have come across. I've yet to disagree with her. I might disagree with her approach, but I don't disagree with what she says.
We dislike when women have those types of personalities of like, how dare you not be humble? Like, her name is not coming to my mind. Sha'Carri, the track runner. Mm-hmm. So
is this the one with the marijuana?
Yes.
I present this whole thing.
No, so say what you want to say about her, say what you want to say about the issue, but even prior to that whole thing happening, the reason people were wishing so hard for her downfall was because she was talking her shit, because she knew she was talented, because she knew, she was worth that type of hype, and she was hyping herself up. And then the minute she failed, the minute she slipped,
the girls went ham.
Everybody was like, oh, that's why you should have been humble. Like, really?
Why are people obsessed with humbling Black women? I just want to know. Meanwhile, we are the shit.
Absolutely.
Show me something that Black women can turn shit into gold, but y'all are obsessed with humbling us. What's the reason?
Because we're there to do the work, but keep our mouth shut. Like
that part.
We're there to show up. We're there to fix. But don't you dare say anything, because again, I mean, it dates back to centuries, and, do the work, do the things, make the house in order, keep everything in order. But
right.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't say that. Like,
don't say a word.
That really is the source of, in my opinion, like where imposter syndrome comes from, because you start to believe, like, there's no way that you hear something 1,000 times and then you don't start to internalize that in your head. Like,
indeed.
A good example for me was when I was Miss Purview, right? This is a prominent position. This is essentially one of the most well-known people on campus. From the moment I won to the day I gave up my fucking crown, I was like, am I Miss, like, did I really win that shit?
The girls said you wasn't Black, honey.
They questioned my ethnicity. They said that I wasn't doing shit worth doing program. But like, there were so many different voices in my head, right? Despite the fact that I knew I was trying my absolute best. I knew I was doing a good job. But these 5 or so little voices would get stuck in your head, right? And people always tell you, like, don't focus on the negative and, oh, there's 1,000 more positive things. But I'm sorry. if somebody hugs me and then somebody comes up right after them and punches me in the fucking face, guess what I'm going to remember?
You're gonna remember getting your fucking face smashed in, honey.
Because one felt good and one fucking hurt. Like,
Yeah.
it's just, that's how it works. So I literally, like, that, the worst imposter syndrome I've ever had in my life started with that experience and continued on after that, because by the time it was done, despite all I'd accomplished, I could not see any of those accomplishments. I could not wrap my head around it. I was like, I don't deserve to do that shit. So even now, like, I've been in my position for a month and I'm like, oh shit, this is my job? Like, I am your boss. Wow. Okay. That's why you're emailing me asking me for permission to do something. I didn't know I was your boss. I forgot. Like,
I get that.
Girl, I'm still clocking in 8 to whatever, just trying to get
Right. I'm trying to find my footing, honey.
and now I'm accountable for you and y'all shit too, Lord.
And
These
ain't
people
nothing
really
fun
gave
about
me this
leading
title.
people.
I
Ain't
feel
nothing
that.
fun about that shit. Like, I don't, it ain't fun.
so how does imposter syndrome come in for y'all in spaces where like you are the only Black person, or like you are the only person of your gender, or like it's just you? Like, how does that start to affect you?
I think, well, for me, my last corporate job or my company prior to this, I don't even know if it was solely imposter syndrome or if it was that plus workplace shenanigans, this, that, and the third. But essentially, there were processes. This is a company that when I started was privately owned and then released an IPO and became publicly traded. So there weren't processes that were set in place. There were all these different things, but me being the person that I am and probably giving a little bit too much and having a little bit too much loyalty where it's not deserved is me like going through and pushing my all and giving my all, knowing good and well that I'm knowing these things, that I'm taking something that has never been done before and actually putting some snips on it, putting some tutorials on it, putting some like, hey, making some SOPs on these things and getting not necessarily the accolades, but when it comes time to have a presentation or when it comes time to call the VP of the department and, hey, these are the things that we're doing, and having my work being spoken for as if you did it or if the team did. And so now I'm like, well, damn, did I do that? I thought I put that into motion, but damn, now I'm confused because nobody's saying nothing.
Yeah.
But you want to be the first to say, hey, these are the things that we've been able to develop within the past month or within the past quarter. How do you look how great it's gotten us? Look how much it's going to propel the company forward. And then on top of that, when it comes to being promoted or moved into different spaces that are able to kind of push forward the work that I was already doing, when nobody sees it and they want to do, that's what I was speaking on earlier, the developments or the promotions or hiring from externally, and then bringing those same people in and bringing them back to me and saying, hey, here you go. Can you teach them how to do these things? I'm sorry, girl, what? Number one, you don't want to applaud me for my work. Number two, you do not want to at least kind of push me in and say, hey, nobody else is doing this. You already did it. It makes sense for you to be in this space. But then three, you want me to train them and basically slap me in my face again.
Yeah.
So again, did I really do this stuff? These presentations, all these notes that I have, are these really mine, or did they just somehow end up on my computer and being forwarded to you?
Yeah.
That's
Shocking.
such a valid point. That
Shocking.
is such a valid point. Like, people try to make you humble and try to tell you like, oh, accolades aren't important and being recognized isn't as important as you. It's important because that's it goes right in that bag with imposter syndrome. If I've done all this work and it seems like nobody can see how hard I've been working or nobody can seem to recognize, then what is the value of my work? Why does my work matter? If I'm putting my all into something and something, comes out and there's like an article about this project that I did, but another person's face is on it, then am I worth being recognized for that?
Right.
Work? Like,
yeah. So it's funny because when I was at my old corporate job, I had similar experiences because the team I was on, there were some improvements that needed to be made. And when the team leader finally started involving the team in the process of trying to come up with solutions that would benefit the team, my suggestions were the most I don't want to say productive, but they made the most sense, especially considering the job I had before that. I was in a leadership role doing the kind of things that we did. So when we started implementing my ideas, they actually worked. And it ended up being something that stuck with the team. And that was the way our team functioned moving forward. For the town halls that would come up when they would applaud how much my team has improved our numbers, there was no mention that this new function was an idea that Deidre brought to the meeting. Now that I'm in this workspace, which it's literally to achieve a specific goal, I am very adamant about being, if the girls want to call me arrogant, I'll be that. But I have no problem threatening to leave. At the most minor inconvenience, I come to, hey, listen, this ain't what I signed up for. If this don't get corrected, I'm out of this, I'm out of here.
Listen, I will
replace me.
I will fake some motherfucking confidence. I'll be like, you know what? I'm thinking about my career path and what's going to be best for me long term. And then I'll walk away from the meeting and I'll be like, bitch, I cannot believe you just said that to your boss.
Well, let me tell y'all something. One day I just made a decision for myself and it's been working. And I'm gonna just keep that energy. And I advise anybody listening, go into, especially if you know you've invested so much into your personal and professional development, you're thousands of dollars in debt for these degrees that the girls told us y'all supposed to have and all this jazz. Y'all need to walk into rooms with the confidence of a white man. Because the reality is they're quite mediocre and yet somehow they end up in these leadership positions.
Have the audacity of a white man.
One thing you need to have is audacity. And I always give this example to my clients, especially my client, because I like to focus the work that I do on people developing themselves professionally and personally. If I'm looking for a groomer for Gypsy and Nuri, the baddest bitches who ever walked the earth, these are the baddest Shih Tzus to ever walk the earth. I'm not going to hire the dog groomer who's like, yeah, I mean, I'm good at grooming Shih Tzus. And I'm gonna hire the dog groomer who is like, your dogs look a mess and the only person that can make them dogs look good is me. That's the dog groomer I'm hiring. And hey, if her work is mediocre, I'm gonna have to learn it after she fuck up my dog's haircut. But I'm not hiring no dog groomer who don't seem sure and confident that she could groom my dogs. And then you also have that confidence and you have backup. I could go to your Instagram and see the work that you do. Get your ass over here and watch my dogs. I want all of us who have invested so much of ourselves into our careers to have the kind of confidence that white men have, because they be in these streets really having us thinking they know what they're doing. And you know what they're doing? They're relying on the Black women on their team. Yeah. Okay? And not recognizing them. So listen, be arrogant.
That makes me go back to something that Maya said earlier. So when I came to undergrad, Maya was, I think the first year that I got there, you were already the captain for the dance squad, essentially, for this band program. And Maya has, you know how Beyonce does Beyonce and then Sasha Fierce? When Maya performs, it's Sasha Fierce. When Maya meets you, like, personally, it's Maya. Like, there's a difference, right?
You know what's funny?
Whole different personality, right? So, you know, I know that when people compliment you on, like, you know, this position that you had, this, like, aura that you had, this presence that you had, the imposter syndrome doesn't let you see it. But what you give when you perform, like, you're giving your all, like, that's the impression that people get. And that's what I need people to think about. Like, all that matters is that you put that shit on when you need to put it on, and you figure out what you need to figure out internally.
Later,
but it's like you walk in a room as if you are the baddest person in that bitch. Nobody's going to question that because they don't know what you're dealing with internally. They don't know that you're actually questioning yourself. All they know is that Maya came out here and fucking hit these 8 counts, slayed that shit, and then left. That's all they left.
But you know what's so funny? It's funny you brought that up because I was just at work the other day and I was helping a customer with something. And she literally was like, dude, you are like so good at everything you're doing. She was like, you're so confident. She was like, your energy is so amazing. She's like, this is nuts. And I said, I promise you, when I'm in my house, I'm the polar opposite of this. I find everybody in my house to be too loud because I'm like energy. I come to work. I tell myself, Deidre, be a cheerleader on crack. Like, I come to work, cheerleader on crack. That's the goal. And I come in there and one thing I pride myself on is like remembering stuff. And I like to learn the information, perfect it, and perform well. I'm very good at performing well. You know, granted, I was raised by somebody who was impossible to please. So because of that, my work ethic is superb. You know what I mean? Like my work ethic is out of this world, you know? But I realized that like at work, it turns on and I get everything done and I'm able to meet, like a lot of people at work find that my boss's standards are a little bit hard to meet, and yet somehow I'm able to meet them. Hey, and then I come home and I'm laying in the bed exhausted, but oh well, I got the job done. I feel like that's a lot of Black women who do well's experience. I feel like we're not talking about it enough though. And I feel like Beyonce may be one of the first, high caliber celebrities or whomever who actually spoke about that. Like, and I think she did that with introducing us to Sasha Fierce, because people see Beyonce on stage and they expect that to be who she is all the time. And it seems like in reality, she's just very quiet, laid up in the bed, like, y'all niggas is too loud. Cause that's how I am in this house.
No, but I mean, essentially when I made this transition to my current job, switching industries, switching from one side of procurement to the total other side, truly, actually not even really knowing what the hell I'm doing. But as soon as they called with that offer, I said, oh, well, girl, you've convinced somebody, because out of all the applicants, they chose you. So just walk in there and just figure it out. Fake it till you make it, very much that. So I told myself with this position, I'm just going to be like, yep, got it. Yep, this is done. Da, da, da. Yeah. Meanwhile, I don't know, girl, that I've had 3 breakdowns today and I'm sobbing and I'm in the bathroom crying. And I got my camera off in the next meeting because I'm sitting here like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And these people didn't really gave me this job and this money. But child, guess what? When it comes to that time for that one-on-one and I'm going over everything with my director, and she's like, listen, you polished it. You what notes do you have for me? I don't have nothing, because basically you're ahead of the curve. And meanwhile, I'm like, shit, I'm so hard behind the curve. I don't know what I'm doing. It's really much that. Have the confidence of a mediocre white man. Mediocre white man, that is a staple and has been a staple for the trajectory of my career path for about a year now.
Good.
Because who gonna say nothing? Because
who gonna check you?
As long as you're walking or you're standing with that confidence, nobody can cut you, nobody can step to you, because there's no need to, because you've already brought that presence. And if you believe it, everybody else is believing it. So
yep.
I love that.
There's that TikTok sound that they were asking. It was like an interview with Rihanna, and they were like, what do you do on the days that you don't feel like you're confident, most best self? And she's like, pretend. What am I gonna do? Sit in my bed and cry all day? Like, what's the alternative?
Yeah,
pretend. I'm gonna fake that shit till I make it. For me to hear Rihanna say that, knowing what we know to be Rihanna and what this public persona is, like, it kind of brought me back to reality of like, oh, this person is human. And as much as we think she has her shit together and she's this flawless individual who's just like made up, done up, like she probably has her own moments of imposter syndrome. She probably has her own moments where she's like, yo, as much as I've literally become this billionaire mogul, I probably don't deserve this shit. Now, I don't know Rihanna, so I can't say that, but for her to admit that, like, if she's not feeling it, she fakes the shit. I was like, okay,
do that. It works. It's legit.
So it's not just me.
It's not just me.
No.
But also, Deidre, you made a very good point that I want to go back to. You talked about having a parent that was impossible to please. Whew. So
are we unpacking trauma today? Like, I know how y'all like to scuffle.
Wait, Deidre said y'all finna jump me. No, but really and truly, that is such like an important thing to note, because, and this is not saying that my parents were like, oh, you have a B, do better, but I am the youngest of 4 children. I have 2 older sisters who were always doing very good in school, always super talented, very good looking. So to me, I was like, I have to be this person. I have to, like, I would get to my next grade and my teacher would say, oh, another Quinones child. Cool. I taught your 3 siblings, so you better be on your shit. Like,
damn, that's so messed up. Oh,
and then I did have that parent who, she was supportive of the things that I was doing, but when it came to emotional things, she was very difficult to read and kind of difficult to please in that way. So I always wanted to keep her like happy. I didn't want to piss her off. I didn't want her to like have an attitude with me. So you kind of shape the way that you do things after that, like people pleasing, I want to make this person happy type thing. and then you find yourself like doing things that don't even really like fulfill you. So then that imposter syndrome comes in, not only of am I qualified to do this, but do I even want to be doing this thing? Does this thing actually serve me? Does it make me
and then
happy?
you feel guilty for feeling that way because you're taking away a job. And that's kind of what made me get to a point where I just left that job, because I said, you know what, Deidre, you're very employable. Mind you, when I left that job, I didn't have a backup plan or nothing. I was actually in the phase where I finally decided, you know what, Deidre, you've done enough here. Start developing a plan so that you can leave, right? But some shit went down, and I was like, you know what? I'm no longer a good fit for this company. I'm taking the rest of the day. Like I dipped. I didn't have but I knew, you know what, Deidre, you could find another job. You will be fine. It is what it is. You know what I mean? But I had to. I was like, my hands were tied. I just was like, yeah, I can't keep doing this. And I do feel like a lot of us, that's really where it's bred, right? Not to be all Freudian about it, but a lot of that imposter syndrome does come from not everybody has like difficult to please parents, right? But some of us may have parents who simply say, oh, just ignore those kids, without really pouring into us and reminding us like, listen, these kids may be having their own shit that they're going through. And that's why they're saying fucked up things to you. Ain't got nothing to do with you.
It's probably
You know
their
what I mean?
parents
Like,
too.
it's their, yeah, like, you know, there's so much, but you know, our parents, essentially, a lot of our parents were just surviving. So I don't sit around and constantly blame my upbringing for everything. I know it's a factor, but guess what? I'm responsible for my present. And okay, bet. Like, let me do what I got to do so that I don't have to feel those experiences, and let me do my part so that Dylan doesn't have some of the experiences I had. You know what I mean? And one thing, y'all gonna have to call my baby arrogant when he's grown, because that little boy's exceptional. So he's gonna walk, and first of all, he's gonna be tall, and he's gonna walk into spaces and know that he's the shit. Like, he's gonna walk into spaces and know that he deserves to be there. There's not going to be a question about it, because I congratulate him where it's due. I give him constructive criticism where it's due. And I don't believe in, you know, a lot of people create this delusion in some of their, you know, kids' minds, like they're entitled to things. You are entitled to life. You're here for a reason. It's your birthright to be great and enjoy life, you know, but you're damn right. Whatever you want is yours. Go for it. Y'all gonna have to call my baby arrogant, honey. Y'all have to call him arrogant.
Because I think people teach humility in such a wrong way, and people teach humility to Black children and brown children in a very different way than they teach humility to white children. Like, for white children, humility is kindness, and for Black children, humility is don't acknowledge the fact that you're actually fucking great. Like, keep that shit to yourself, you know?
Right.
But let me ask it, and I know this is a rhetorical question because duh, but do you guys think that social media also contributes to imposter syndrome for most of us?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I definitely wanted to bring that up because a big part of why so many of us feel like we are not qualified to be doing what we're doing, or we're not doing enough in the spaces that we're in, is because we have so much access to other people in that same space doing it 10 times better, or doing it on a bigger scale.
A lot of people only share the destination. They don't share the journey. They don't share the fact that they went through all these highs and lows. They don't share the fact that so many doors were closed. They share the success. And so a lot of people out here drinking that shit up and thinking, you know, I can get it too. But then at the same time, feeling like, actually, I can't get it, you know, because that person already has it. That makes it less accessible to me. Or that person is better looking, that's why they got it. Or that person who, worry about yourself. And a lot of people are chasing what's not even meant for them. That's the real tea, because success is so linear in our society. Success in our society looks like one thing: fame and fortune, honey. And everybody's chasing it in a way that's not for them. Beyonce succeeded at being a fucking pop star because Beyonce was born to be a pop star. You know what I mean? Beyonce's a born performer. You know, figure out what's yours, hone in on that, and don't expect your success to look the same as others. Because to people whose version of wealth is having coconut trees in their backyard, we out here wealthy as fuck. Okay. Like, if you could pay your rent, you could pay your bills, honey, you're successful. Okay.
Girl, get off my back. I did not come on here to get dragged. I know that we were going to be having a conversation, but I did not come on here to get read on today. Thank you so much.
We are a cross between a therapy session and a happy hour and taking tequila shots in your living room by yourself. Okay,
big facts.
We're right there in the middle.
You know what? You just brought about again. Just thinking about so when in my introduction, I said I'm stepping into the realm of content creation, and you want to know why? It's because year over year over year, there are ideas in my phone, in the back of my head that I hear daily that I have been sitting on for at least 7 or 8 years because I don't feel like I am good enough to be able to produce it, or that my story or my background or the look of me or who I am or what I have to provide or give won't catch on, or that, okay, girl, well, the person A, person B, person C, all the way to person Z, they're already doing something similar. So what makes you different? Like, why would you bring the same shit? Nobody wants to hear that because they didn't see Mary Jane, Jim, John, and Jules do the same thing. So there's no space for you. So you probably just want to keep that and go and do something else with it. But meanwhile, the other side of me is like, well, girl, there's a reason why you cannot escape these ideas. There's a reason why it's in your dreams. There's a reason why, but you keep using excuses. And I think that that's another thing that we as Black women fall victim to. Okay, well, I'm going to use this sector of my life. I need to be the backbone for this person, so I can take the back step, for a little while to be able to do this. But meanwhile, it's just me telling myself, or that imposter syndrome, that I'm not capable, or that I will not be relevant, or I don't have anything to provide to this space. Let me just attribute that to what I think that I need to do in my exterior life, or to help whomever to appease that, which really is myself. And that's the start and end of it all. It's just yourself, girl.
Yeah, it's true.
It really is just that inner voice, like, wildin'.
Facts. And you know what? I've even come to the point where, like, I do love making content. I don't put a lot of backbreaking work into it. That's the real tea. And I'm okay with that, because when I put out whatever I put out, I'm happy about what I put out. It's okay to not be the same as everybody else, because we're not meant to be. Their path is theirs,
Yeah.
Their path is theirs.
On the other side of that, though, and this is honestly what I think is the solution to most of our cases of imposter syndrome, is you have to be honest with yourself. Like,
yeah.
One, you have to be honest with yourself about whether or not that voice in your head is telling the truth, because most of the time that voice in your head is not. Most of the time, those people who said those negative things about you were just being fuck ass haters, and they could suck a dick. Sorry, but they can. And 9 times out of 10, the things that you think that you're underqualified or unqualified for, like Maya was saying earlier, every single time you thought that you were not being or you were not meeting the expectations of your boss was affirming you and saying, you've exceeded my expectations. And sometimes even when we hear that little voice goes, yeah, fuck that, they're lying, that it doesn't mean shit.
Yes.
Like, I had to listen to my husband one day when he was like, I don't understand why you think that even after they offered you the job, offered you the salary, made it official, promoted you, posted an article about it, they publicly claimed you still think you are not qualified for this position. And I'm trying to figure out why. Same thing with my therapist. You have done all of these things. You have the track record. You see that. You know it's there. You still think you're not qualified. Why? You have all this evidence. So a part of that is being honest with yourself, telling yourself the truth. Once you hear those thoughts of like, oh, I can't do this because I'm not this, sitting there and logically going through it of, okay, but what proof do I have that this thing is true? The other side of it, especially for content creators, is be honest with yourself about the output, right? I went through that phase of I can't, or I'm not going to be as good as this person, or I'm not going to be, the premier person doing this, or my content is not going to be as good. But I wasn't giving my all to that content. It was sitting there. Or when it wasn't sitting there, I was just doing it, crossing my fingers, hoping that somebody would love it, but I wasn't giving it 100% of my energy, right? A lot of the content creators we see who are as successful as they are, we kind of coin it to luck. And the reality of it is,
they put in a lot of work,
especially for Black content creators. It's not luck. It's not luck. They
Mm-hmm.
put hella work and hella time and hella financials into getting the quality of content that they have. Like Jackie Aina, as we know her today, Jackie Aina is an example of that person who started off with a very small YouTube channel, who we watched literally grow into this amazing person. But if you think about when she actually started that channel, where she was in her life, exactly. This was like at the start.
Pumpkin Pie 05.
Exactly.
Yes.
Hawaii.
Yes. That shit looked like she was filming on a potato. Her makeup, like, she's made. Am I wrong? Even our content has improved over time.
This isn't so much about Jackie as it is about other content creators. Other smaller content creators aren't looking at Jackie Aina, who started out in 2007, 2008. These content creators in their beginning stages are looking at Jackie Aina now and saying, why doesn't my content look like this? Not acknowledging that it took from 2000 whatever to fucking 2022 for her shit to look like that. And it took work and it took sacrifice. Like, I think she was married when she started filming content. She was in the military.
Hawaii. She was she had a lot going on, but look at how much she's changed. Look at how much she's evolved from that.
Exactly, right? So, and same thing with our podcast, right? There are smaller podcasters who come to me and say like, my audio doesn't sound like you guys'. I don't know how to get my social media to look like Good Up social media. And I'm like, yo, first of all, have you ever listened to the first episode of Good Up? Have you ever seen like how our social media used to look 2 years ago? Because it was cute. I was doing my best, but it was what I had, the talent that I had or the skills that I had in that moment. And they've grown and I've put work into it. But it took, this podcast is 2 years old. It's not, we didn't start this shit yesterday.
Right.
So, no, your audio is not going to sound like Good Up on day one unless you really sit there and research and put the work in to make sure that it does, right? That doesn't mean that you're not capable. That doesn't mean that you're not qualified. That doesn't mean that you're not the person to do this. It just means be honest with yourself about the effort that you are putting in, right? Just be honest with yourself, you know?
That's and it comes down to do the best you can with what you have. And as long as you put your very best into it, it will continue to grow, you know? And like you said, you just be honest with yourself. You always have what you need in the moment. Like, use that, because then that's going to grow. And the thing is people feel the passion, people feel that the genuine investment. And our day ones, like, we have people who I'm like, y'all really listen to this shit? Like, y'all really fucks with us? Like,
yeah.
You sure?
Imposter syndrome hits me heavy with this podcast because there are times when, even looking at the stats, even looking at the proof, even looking at how we've grown, I'm like, it's still not enough. It's not enough. It's not enough. Like, I need more.
I think the people outside of us, I think the best way to combat imposter syndrome is to, you know, they always say, oh, don't worry about what other people think of you. But the best way to combat it is to go based on what others think of you. Because the reality is the only person telling you that you don't deserve it is you. Meanwhile, this company just invested more money into you. This company publicly claimed you. This company offered you a nice chunky bag of money. Okay. There's a reason for that. So don't worry about how you feel, worry about what they think. And I tell myself that because at work, I've only been there like 3 months and I'm already leading like teams and shit. And I'm like,
oh, that's right.
And I'm like, but you know, I just got here. And my boss is like, okay. And you got promoted for a reason though. Yeah, like we come on now. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, go based on what others think of you.
And I think it's also a little bit of trusting the process, or just in general. When you said, or when Hayaz said, you know, this podcast still gives you anxiety, I was like, well, thank you, girl, because I was anxious last night. I barely slept and I was up researching again because I was like, well, after you asked me to join today, I was like, now what I get myself into, because I don't even know if I'm qualified to be able to have an opinion, when truly this is no one asking for a dissertation or anything like that. We're just talking about our experiences in our daily life. But I'm like, okay, do I really know what imposter syndrome means? Like, is there something that I've really experienced? And so even that, something as, not to say that this is small, but something just as effortless as this should be, I really was like, okay, I need to be up 3 hours in advance because I need to make sure, and do I really have something to say? Am I going to fumble my words? Are they going to like me? Just craziness, absolute craziness, which makes no sense, because literally if you just trust the process, it's going to be whatever it's going to be, and what's for you is for you, point blank, period, no matter what capacity that is.
Like, imposter syndrome is not good, right? But one thing that helped me kind of ease it up a little bit was my boss said to me, it's good to know that you actually care. You being so nervous and wanting to give your best, it proves to me that you actually care. He was like, if you came in with no fears and no concerns, then I would be concerned. So yeah, we're gonna walk into rooms with the confidence of, mediocre white men. But the reality is we actually bring in some friggin' value with us. That's the difference. I think we have earned the confidence that those men have. So be audacious, honey. Be audacious in these streets.
Yeah, it's definitely important to care, because you want to show people that like you want to do a good job, right? But it can't come at a cost to like giving yourself credit. Another thing that we don't do, and it's funny, I was in a session with a committee that I'm in at work, right? And in this, we had basically a retreat to plan out everything we wanted to do. And we kept telling this consultant, like, we feel like we haven't done enough. We feel like we should be doing more, right? And he's listening to all of us say the same thing. Like, we have this goal of doing more. And he was like, can you guys sit down and tell me everything you've done in the past year? So we tell him all these things that we've done. And he's like, not once while you were telling me about your goals did you give yourself credit as a committee for all of this work you've been doing for the past year. And even if you think that it wasn't as impactful as it was, you put the time and the effort into that work, and you should give yourself credit for that. Because if you don't, it's easy to say we haven't done anything, or we haven't done enough, or we're not where we want to be. But where is it that you want to be? And in comparison to where you started, like, can you at least give yourself credit for that? Like, I get frustrated a lot with myself on content, on where I want to be, on where I want the podcast to be, on where I want to be as a person. But when I'm doing that, when I'm going through that cycle of like self-deprecation, I am never at the same time thinking about all of the shit that I've done in the past like 10 years, right?
Yeah.
I'm never giving myself credit, right? I spend so much more energy and time self-deprecating than I do gassing my shit up. Like, we don't sit down and be like, you know what, let's take a moment to reflect on where we were 5 years ago. Like,
facts.
Let's take a moment to shout out, young Deidre, young Maya, young Haz, and be like, bitch, 5 years ago, I had just graduated undergrad. I was jobless. I did not have a master's degree. I had never lived on my own. I didn't have a car. Like, just these small little things. 5 years ago, your biggest goal, and I'm talking to myself, your biggest goal was getting a fucking job in a car. We have both. What's
Girl,
next?
yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. And I feel like we've talked about this before as well on the show of, we spend so much time setting goals that when we accomplish those goals, we just move on to the next. We create new goals, as opposed to basking in the fact that, oh shit,
we don't reflect.
We don't reflect. And that's a necessary part of our growth, is that gratitude. That's really where we manifest from our heart, and with gratitude. Because when we think like, yo, I saw a quote once and I live by it. Look around yourself and you'll realize that everything that's around you is something you once prayed for.
And that's the thing. I think that something that has really helped me is by returning back to writing stuff down. So when I have to make things tangible for myself, because I'm not yet at the point to where I can easily say, Maya, you did this. Maya, you accomplished this. Maya, you can do this. Or Maya, you will do this. So instead, I just write it down. I'll make a note, make the date. These are all the things that I aspire. These are all the things that I want, whether you want to call it manifesting or whatever speaks to you. And then I'll go back and say, well, damn, girl, January 1st, 2022, you said you wanted these things, and look what you've done in 2 months. Or I'm in the process of trying to figure out where my next move is going to be, whether that's city, state, whatever the case may be, and all the things that I want when I move next. I look at, okay, well, this is what you dreamed of. You already have half of those things, or just really, it's so crazy how we speed up. We keep on going, we keep on going, we keep on going. And I'm not sure, I can only speak as a Black woman. I'm sure other people, experience that. But first and foremost, as Black women, we never have time to slow down and catch up, because we're always aspiring or progressing, or we're always needed in a different capacity or a different space that we don't have the time to say like, well, no, you did this. You made this happen. You accomplished this. So Truly, I don't know what works for everybody else, but that's what works for me. Writing it down and making it real for myself by being able to see it and cross it off and say, okay, well, this is legitimately where you were at. This is where you are now.
Yeah.
And again, give yourself time to reflect on the things that you've done, and don't think about, oh, what are the big things that I've done? What are the monumental things that I've done? Even the small things like mean something. Yeah, just take the time to reflect. Take the time to give yourself some fucking credit, because please, Black women especially,
and celebrate your small wins.
Yes, hype yourself up.
Victories for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, we are almost at our time to wrap up, but Maya, I definitely want to give you some time to hype yourself up. In the spirit of hyping yourself up, tell us what you're working on, where we can find you, how we can support you.
Yes.
Because we're going to make sure that this imposter syndrome doesn't win and you get your accolades and your gifts, you know?
Thank you. I appreciate that. I am in the space of reestablishing myself, reestablishing my brand and who I am as an individual, and not attached to anything else. Let's see, social media wise, you can find me at Maya Angelou, MayaAngelou, the brand. Content wise, my podcast, one of them is, we're on the up and up of trying to rebrand with Corporate Black Girls. It streams on Spotify, Apple. Child, I don't know. Those are the most prominent ones. And then Real Talk That Talk as well. It streams live on YouTube every Wednesday at 7:15 Central. But I thank you guys so much for creating this space, this community. Like, it feels so needed. And you guys are doing something so powerful. And it's just by being yourselves and just bringing what you've done to the forefront, what you want, what you've experienced, and just who you are. And that's so powerful. And we need more like that. So again, I thank you so much for you all and what you're doing, as well as asking me to be on this podcast, even though I was cringing and so nervous about it. This is something that's truly been amazing. So I thank you all for giving me the space as well to be able to, bring myself up and, apart.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you. I love getting hyped up. I can't
not
hype
me
myself
sitting here
up.
cringing while she's saying that. Like, no, shout out to my imposter syndrome.
I'm gonna give it to you. Listen, okay, well, maybe that's just part of the work. If we can't give it to ourselves, let's give it to somebody else.
Right.
I'm sitting here like, no, don't say things.
I'm gonna give it to you.
But thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing this space. Like, you are absolutely right. This is why we created this podcast, is to have these conversations, because sometimes you feel in something and you don't have the words to talk about it, or you don't know how to introduce it in your friend group. And like, that was my goal for this podcast, is so that we can be like the push for people to have these conversations, because if you don't talk about it, you suffer in silence, and we can't do that anymore. But if you're listening, you know where to find us on social media at Good Up Pod. If you want to support the podcast in an extra way, you want to make sure, we can keep the lights on, pay the bills, and improve this audio. You can be a part of the VIP section over on Patreon.
Because they done heard this episode.
Yeah.
About a week ago.
The VIP section is lit. They heard this episode last week. They saw the video for it also. They have access to video content. So you can sign up at patreon.com/gooduppodcast. It is really important to support Black creators, Black female creators, even if you feel like you're not going to be paying attention to the Patreon. Like, $1 a month out of your bank account is paying our bills. So... And by bills, I mean like the podcast bills.
The podcast bills. Because just in case y'all don't know, at least our podcast, it ain't free to have, honey. I've been seeing the little invoices coming in from Buzzsprout. I see the emails. Yeah. The girls are charging us. Okay.
The girls are charging us. So yeah, if you want to support the podcast a little extra, you can do that. And then we have our own hashtags. So use hashtag GoodUpTuesday on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram to join the conversation and tell us about your experience with imposter syndrome. We have a question thread every Monday, which I post on Twitter and Instagram, that always leads up to the episode. So if you took part in the question thread yesterday, thank you so much. And yeah, that's all I have. Maya, thank you again for coming.
Thanks,
and
Maya.
Deidre, tell the people and bye.
Bye.
Good Up is hosted and produced by Deidre Ritter and Hey Isaac Quinones Ivory and is a proud member of the Kickin' It family. Find us on all social media platforms at Good Up Pod. Use hashtag Good Up Tuesday to continue the conversation and get access to exclusive bonus content at patreon.com/gooduppodcast.